Hi there, Jeff here from the Wetsuit Centre, talking to you today about things not to do with your wetsuits. So over the years we see some typical common damage to wetsuits which isn't covered under your warranty. It's just a bit of a rundown on these things to avoid and hopefully give your wetsuit a bit more of a shelf life. Okay, so number one, definitely the most common type of damage we see in a wetsuit is nail damage. Nail damage is done usually when putting on or taking off a wetsuit, and there's a few things you can do to avoid that happening. Most common on smooth skin or sort of a single lined neoprene, which is this sort of smooth stuff here. Because that's not lined with like a lycra fabric, it doesn't have that sort of reinforcement, and so it's quite sort of prone to ripping and tearing when you really sort of grab at it with your nails. The typical time that happens is when you've got the wetsuit up over your legs and you're looking to sort of manoeuvre the wetsuit up your body. Okay. Now what people sort of, the trap people fall into here is they'll sort of grab at it with their nails lower down and on the thigh and on the midriff as well. So to avoid that, what you want to use is just slide the wetsuit up that way. Just use the pads of your fingers, the palms of your hands to sort of move it up and get that length up the body. Okay, so instead of sort of grabbing with your nails and causing a rip and really sort of causing a lot of pressure on the wetsuit, choose the sort of palms that way and slide up the body. Because nail marks are not covered under your warranty, which is worth mentioning. Warranties usually just cover the sort of workmanship of the suit. So nail marks are classed as user error and won't be covered sort of under a manufacturer's warranty. So if Robbie continues to put the suit up his body that way, you can see he's just avoiding using his nails, and when he does sort of grab onto the wetsuit, he's just sort of grabbing it and sliding it, and he's grabbing onto the stronger parts of the wetsuit as well. So it's not sort of like one of the typical places that we see it is around the midriff, and that's usually where people are trying to slide the wetsuit up their body. So to avoid doing that, just sort of raise your arms with your head, let it naturally slide up your body, and just use flat palms and fingers to slide up, and you should be able to get the wetsuit on nice and easily with minimal amount of damage. If you're really worried, if it's a brand new wetsuit, you're trying it on, you haven't actually sort of decided you want to keep it, and sometimes it's even a good idea to use some gloves, some soft gloves, just to avoid ripping and tearing, just to make sure you don't have any sort of issues with the warranty. Okay, but that's suit on successfully and no damage. There are other styles of suits, so that's the obviously the swimming style of wetsuit, which has got a lot of that smooth skin neoprene. On a wetsuit like this, which is a double-lined wetsuit, which is more conducive to sort of multi-purpose things like surfing, that kind of thing, it's got the lycra lining, so it is stronger, but it is still prone to ripping and tearing if you really yank at the suit. So when you're sliding up your body, or if you really need to grab it on the points where there's more sort of robust material, like the knee pads, or around the hips, on the sort of joints where there's taping, that kind of thing. Just avoid grabbing onto that smooth skin material, especially with your nails, because if it rips, it will need to be fixed, and again, it's not covered in your warranty. Some other common damage that we see in wetsuits, especially new wetsuits, is around the ankles of a wetsuit. The reason for this is they are cut very, very narrow around your ankles to create a nice tight seal. But what that does mean, especially if you've got quite big feet and you're trying to get your feet through the bottom part of the wetsuit, that's where damage occurs, and it usually from toenails, from toes, from heels, that kind of thing, and it puts a huge amount of stress on parts of the lower part of the suit, and it might sometimes rip or tear. There's a few things you can avoid to do that. Obviously, when you get to this sort of stage and your foot's going through, it's just to grab, instead of grabbing the neoprene itself, it's just to grab the ankle, spread it nice and wide as you can, and push your foot through nice and slowly, again sliding it up over your heel. But another useful thing to do if you're really struggling, if you're really worried about damaging the suit, is just pop a plastic bag over your foot, and then you can just slide on through the leg of your wetsuit, and it should pop out nice and easily, and it's very, very small chance of any damage there. Then just whip the bag off afterwards, and then you're good to go. But just when you're putting on the suit, just be really mindful that don't put too much stress when you're putting your foot through. Especially some of the modern wetsuits, which are designed with a lot of flexibility in mind, they are more prone to damage in this sort of area. So number 4, quite a common one that we see with modern wetsuits, which are chest and zip entry, or zipless entry, I should say. This little toggle that comes on the chest piece of the wetsuit. Now basically you're getting in through the top here, and this chest piece goes up and over your head, and then this will be against your chest. And then what you do is you use this toggle, which has a piece of elastic running through here, just to give it a little pull and tighten it up, just to create a good seal around your shoulder. Now what we do see a lot of is people really, really yank on this, to the point where it does break, because at the end of the day it's only a piece of elastic, and over time that will snap, and it's not something that you can just replace yourself. It needs to be done, because it's all integral, it needs to be done by the supplier or the manufacturer of the wetsuit, which means that you will be without your suit for a bit of a time as well, if it's still covered under warranty. So the thing to do is just be mindful of this, and when you are sort of pulling the toggle, there's only one part of the toggle that should move, because the bottom part is actually sort of static and it's just joined to the inside of the wetsuit. So you just grab the top part, push in, give it a little pull so it's nice and tight, and let it go. But don't really pull too hard, because it's not going to create that much of a better seal. Basically your body pushing the fabric onto each other should actually create the seal. This is just here just to give a little bit of a tighten and just make sure the suit's nice and comfy and snug to you, not to be really yanked, because it's got to last basically. Okay, number 5, it's worth mentioning wetsuit boots. This is quite a common bit of damage that we see, which comes down to the loophole on the back of the boot itself. Now this little loop here is to help you put the wetsuit boot on. So once you sort of get halfway and you need to get it over your heel, you can just put your finger through and give it a little pull and a little tug upwards. And that's the key to the problem. It needs to be pulled upwards. What we see a lot of the time is people pulling this wetsuit off, pulling the wetsuit boot off using the tab and pulling it downwards. When you pull it downwards, you can see the sort of stress around the seam there. It's not built for that. That sort of like the sort of foxing or the rubber over the top is mainly on the bottom part of the thread. So it's okay to pull up. There's not much of an issue there, but when you start to pull it down and out, it will eventually give up the ghost, and then you'll find that that loop could actually break, which is quite a common thing we see. So remember, when you're using the loop tab, just use it to pull the boot on and avoid using that to pull it off. When you're pulling the boots off, you should be basically sliding it down off your foot, getting your thumbs in the side and sort of just hooking it off naturally that way. But yeah, definitely one worth remembering. Okay, so those are a few of the key fundamental major issues that we have that are not covered under warranty. Obviously, when we say warranty, we mean the manufacturer's warranty, and that will cover things, like we say, like workmanship. So you're talking about the seams giving up, a zip falling off, that kind of thing. Things that shouldn't happen during the normal sort of first year of a wetsuit. Unfortunately, the things we're talking about, things that are not covered under warranty, which are kind of things that fall under user error, which are things basically which can be avoided, which come down to basic misuse of the suit. So we'll give you a few of those, and these are sort of the ones that come of common sense and most people may know, but it's definitely worth mentioning. So number 6, we would say tumble drying, which does happen. So never use your tumble dryer to dry your wetsuit, because it will not survive that sort of heat and pressure. It's not good for the seams or for any part of the wetsuit basically, and will not be covered under your manufacturer's warranty. So tumble dryers are a definite no-no, as tempting as they may be. Number 7 is going to be chlorinated swimming pools or chlorinated pools. The chlorine is terrible for a wetsuit, okay, so it will degrade the wetsuit very quickly, including the neoprene itself and all of the glues, okay, and it will not be covered under your warranty again. So you may or may not be aware of that, but yeah, definitely avoid chlorinated pools for the good of your wetsuit. Number 8 is the classic weeing in your wetsuit, which may or may not be avoided. It's not horrendous for your wetsuit, but over time, if it's something that you do frequently and you don't rinse out the suit, it can degrade the seams of your wetsuit, especially the glue, that kind of thing. So not great for your wetsuit, and if you do it, then just grab a wetsuit shampoo and give it a little rinse. But lastly, it's going to be the artificial heat. So it's very tempting to obviously get your wetsuit dry nice and quickly, especially if you're going out for a second surf session or whatever. No one likes getting back into a cold, wet wetsuit. But if you use things like artificial heat, so if you hang it over like a radiator, pop it in an airing cupboard, again a tumble dryer, that kind of thing, then it's basically starting to damage the sort of lycra on the wetsuit and the seams and the glue as well. It does sort of degrade them over time. It's not something that will happen instantly, but if it's something you continually do, you'll notice the suit starting to become quite stiff, especially the lycra and some of the glues going off colour, and generally, again, it's not great for the longevity of the wetsuit. But these are our sort of top tips of things to avoid when you've bought yourself a nice new wetsuit, and hopefully they'll be handy tips to help your wetsuit get a nice long life.